Hi, Ben Lawless here for Matilda Education, and I want to speak to you quickly about rubrics and why we think that you should use them. I was lucky enough to work at the Assessment Research Centre under Patrick Griffin that developed a series of guidelines about how to write really good criteria for developmentally minded rubrics, and we have included that in our books. So, the problem if you don't use rubrics, is that students don't really know what they need to do to get better. Yeah. Okay. So students do assessments, small ones, big ones, formative, summative, whatever, and they get feedback from teachers, and the feedback will often be about that task. That's fine, but if there's no information about telling them what they need to do to get better, then they aren't going to get better. And especially for students at the top level who are used to finding it relatively easy to get A's and B's, they've never been exposed to what it looks like to get better at that skill. A lot of the time, if a student's doing well for their age, teachers are kind of be like, okay, well, they're fine, and I'll spend time on the students who are struggling a bit more. And those top students don't do very well because they've never been explained what they need to do to get better because they're already pretty good for their age. The other problem, and a real difficulty in my opinion, is that students get graded and they get scores. So a student will do a task and they'll get an A, or they'll do a task and get a 75%, right? Now, people think that these numbers and letters mean something. Parents think, oh, okay, my child's getting an 80, that's fantastic, or they're getting an A, that's great, or they're getting a D, they're doing really badly. It's impossible to interpret this information. Like, firstly, if everyone in the class is getting 100%, you get 100%. Well, comparatively, from a norm referencing point of view, are they that fantastic? Who knows? Maybe the marking's too easy. But more importantly, in my opinion, is that these grades and scores, they're demotivational. A lot of students find it easy to get A's. A lot of students are working really hard and they're getting C's and D's. That demotivates the top and the bottom students. And then also, it doesn't tell students what they need to do to get better. Okay, remember Hattie and Timperley's really seminal article about feedback from 2009? I don't know, I can't remember. Talks about that students need to know where they are, where they're going, and what they need to do to get to that next step, okay? So that's what feedback should do. And feedback that's just feedback about the task itself or a grade or whatever doesn't do that. So the solution to all of these problems is to create developmentally minded rubrics. And this would be a rubric where each step is a more difficult or more complex display of a certain skill. There's actually quite a lot of curriculum within that rubric, so the actual domain of the skill will be in there. So simply by students seeing, say, 5 levels of certain skill they can do, they know they've learnt something about the skill. The other important thing is that it focuses on skills, not scores. As my old boss Patrick Griffin would say, one of his mantras was skills, not scores. Scores, it's just a random number or letter. What are you going to do with it? If you've got a skill, you know what you can do, and a well-written rubric will tell you what you need to do to get better. It's what is ever written in the criteria above the one that you've got currently. In New Zealand, their new well, it's not new, it's been around for about 15 years, NCEA. When students graduate high school, they have their statement of achievement has a big list of things that they can do. And employers love that. Rather than giving them an A or an 80%, what 20% can't they do? This statement saying what students can do, that's really useful for an employer. Oh, okay, they know they can read a till receipt, they can follow instructions, blah, blah, blah. So, really briefly, and we're going to include a link to this, but it's important to unlearn bad rubric writing. And the Assessment Research Centre that I worked at developed these 10 guidelines for good quality criteria. The quality criteria are what are written in each box in a rubric, okay? So you're going to have skills, say 4 or 5 skills. The quality criteria should allow you to be able to infer something about developmental learning. It shouldn't just be counting things that are right or wrong. So a well-written rubric should not have some or many or 1, 2, or 3 spelling mistakes or whatever. It should be about the quality of their performance getting better. The second one is that language shouldn't be ambiguous or shouldn't contain comparative terms. I'm talking about words like appropriate, suitable, adequate. Shouldn't be using those words to define the quality of performance. People don't agree on what those words mean. If you ever look at pretty much any VCE performance descriptor, you'll see that they are just chock-a-block full of ambiguous language like suitable, adequate. Doesn't mean anything to most people. And also, as I've mentioned, it doesn't tell you how to get better. If your understanding is suitable, but it needs to be sophisticated, what do you need to get it from suitable, sophisticated? The rubric doesn't tell you. Third thing, should discriminate between performances of increasing quality. It shouldn't be steps in a procedure. Fourth, as mentioned, it should describe performances that each successive description implies a progressively higher level of performance quality. There should only be one central idea in each column of your rubric. You shouldn't put two different skills squashed into one box, because if the student can do one but not the other, then what are you going to do there? They should be directly observable. So things in a rubric should be what students do, say, make, or write. There shouldn't be things saying the student thinks that. You don't know, you can't infer what's going on inside a person's head, except in how they show it externally by do, say, make, or write. Another one of Patrick's mantras. You should avoid negative language. So there shouldn't be can't do this, can't do that. If we start saying what students can't do, we're going to be here all day. And it's kind of depressing to read feedback saying what you can't do. It should reflect typical behaviours that cover a diverse range of quality, including a stretch for the most proficient. This is really important. The rubrics written according to these rules should have something at the bottom that's something that everybody can do, and something at the top that is a stretch even for the most skilled students. That's so important, because the top students in Australia are making the least progress because they don't get extended. There should be 4 or fewer criteria for any indicator, and they should be transparent. So the students should be able to read the rubric and understand it themselves. If it's full of jargon, it's no good. So the reason why I'm mentioning this on a Matilda video is because we have developed something which we are pretty sure is unique to the textbook game in Australia, if not worldwide, is that we have a learning ladder, which is a rubric written using the developmental progression rules that I just outlined, okay? Huge amount of benefits for this, anecdotally, and this, a little body of research starting to come out now. Students know how they are going, and they know what they need to do to get better, okay? Students can also self-assess themselves. We have tasks and questions in each spread at the different levels, and students can determine which ones they want to do. We also have worked examples of what work looks like at every single level. Our learning ladder has got, so for history and geography, we've picked 5 of the core skills from the curriculum, and we've written, I think it's 5 levels of different performance quality for each of them. And not only do we have that learning ladder in the background of the whole book, but questions and activities and assignments in the book are all targeted at those different levels, so students and teachers can easily differentiate their work. And we're really, really excited to share that with you. Thanks very much. Keep it real.